This is the Healing Law Podcast, and we have world famous Judge Unslavius, aka Paul Unslaved, aka Paul Laporta. He's a bit of a, I don't want to say an activist too much, but he's somewhat to some extent for sure. He's definitely outspoken about rights, freedoms, principles, and spiritual faith. A lot of interesting conversations come out of this young man here. Greetings, Paul. Good to see you.
How are you, Douglas?
I'm doing great, man. Wonderful to have you here, man. Thank you.
I always feel like the fat guy from King of Queens.
Yeah.
When we do this format. Hello, Douglas. If you know, you know.
Oh, yeah. So you got your YouTube channel, but I mean, that's not really who you are. We want to get behind, we see Paul Unslaved, the world famous, Judge Unslavius on YouTube panel all the time, but we want to get behind the curtains, Paul. What makes you tick, man?
Sure, you stay in front of me where I can see you, quite frankly. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's a great question. What makes me tick? Well, I like to believe that I'm like most people. I have certain things that inspire me and certain things that I'm passionate about, care about, think are important to myself and others. And of course, I have some rather interesting habits in my life at times where I make interesting choices, let's say. I guess if we're going to, step back from it and take the whole view, right? You got to take the good with the bad if we're going raw and uncut here. But yeah, I think there's a light side and a dark side to everyone and everything in a sense, right? And I don't think that I'm any different.
Very humble young man here, Paul Unslaved. So you've made quite an impact in the First Amendment auditor spaces. You yourself aren't really a First Amendment auditor by any means, but they do look to you for some reason as some sort of guidance and leadership, I would say.
I like that for some reason.
For some reason?
Yeah. Well, that's because some of my earlier videos, some of my first videos, the one video that if you know me at all, you would know me from, because I hear it all the time. Oh, I loved you in that one video with the traveling without a license, registration, insurance, and plates. Officer Valdez. So, yeah, that's how we came into this, is the legal lawful thing, right? Because that was something that I was kind of heavily into, studying for kind of decades, I guess, at that point. I don't really keep track of it, but I can't really pinpoint when I started, and it hasn't ended. But yeah, the legal lawful side of things, that's pretty much the introduction to YouTube. And then we kind of, went on to other things, explored other aspects of self and the space. But I think that's why, if you say for some reason these folks look to me or value my opinion or perspective, it's because they've seen me over and over again working in these scenarios and these situations with these types of folks and getting some results. And by some results, that could just range from dismissals at court regularly to they didn't beat me up and arrest me this time. So that's the world that we're in at this point. If they don't beat you up and arrest you, then you're getting results. So
some kind of a win.
You tend to, you garner some type of credibility, right?
Right. So you learned from like a lot of these thinkers, like I cannot think of his name offhand. He came on your panel recently a couple times. Excellent thinker. What's his name?
It's not Snafu Snaps, is it?
No, Snafu Snaps.
If you know, you know. Hashtag. That's my new hashtag. You got to pick a hashtag every so often, Douglas, and just run with it.
Yeah. Yes.
Hashtag Israel first. Yeah.
Oh, yes, of course.
I'm going to get you syndicated here. Hashtag Israel first. Okay. Go ahead. You were saying?
Going all the way to the top, man. Oh, man. Oh, God, I can't think, man.
Thinker.
So when did you first, so you went through a whole prison experience, right? Is that what kind of motivated you to start getting into rights and freedoms and principles, like or the legal versus lawful spectrum? Or was it before
Well, Douglas, that was the first time somebody tried to get behind me, as you say, and go behind the curtain. That prison experience. I don't like to talk about it much. No, I'm jesting there, but yeah, not prison, jail. if there's a difference, right? Only the jailbirds know the difference, I guess. The average person is going to go, jail, prison, what's the difference? But they are apparently uh, different in certain ways. Some argue county jail being worse than prison as far as doing time. But yeah, 100 days, which in my line of work nowadays, at times, right, if I'm not going to be following statute, policy, and code, is not too terrible, right? 100 days. Um, and then I guess in the line of work that I used to be in, or lack thereof, 100 days isn't too bad, right? That was again at a time when I was involved with, say, less than savory characters, less than sweet and savory characters, including myself. So, drugs, sort of other activities going on. Yeah, that lifestyle is typically going to lead to jail. Yeah, I mean, even that's kind of a testament to me of some level of trust and faith in the universe and the program, because um, when I was dealing in drugs and doing things I probably shouldn't have been doing, I wound up having to go to jail and stay in jail. Since I've been kind of practicing upholding the law and exercising rights and going to jail for that, I've never had to stay yet. Uh, God willing, right? I go for 2-3 days. We go to court. Usually things are dismissed, or I elect to not come back and present myself. And then I don't know what happens to these cases, but when I'm arrested again, they tell me there's no warrants and nothing seems to be there. So, yeah,
Well,
worked
So
out.
for those that don't know, like the difference between legal and lawful, is you're very well. Your rhetoric there is on point. Like, could you explain, like, what is the difference between legal versus lawful, and why does this legal system exist?
Well, I mean, one thing I always go to, there's a bunch of things I always point to, but there's a law society and a legal society for a reason, because they're not the same. If we're going to talk law, right, a good way that I kind of look at or understand it, again, this is all just my perspective. I'm not claiming to know what it is. I'm just talking about what it seems to be. But law is essentially principles, um, and sort of practices that are inherent to us as a creature from a standpoint of morality, logic, and ethics, right? So, like, don't kill, don't steal, don't do wrong, right? If you do wrong, then you're involved in sin, and sin is synonymous with wrong and guilt, right? So we say guilty, not guilty. So these are things that anybody anywhere on the planet seemingly could come to a determination without having to be told by anybody else. And then there's the legal side of things, right? Which is more policy related, policy and code related. It's essentially rules for men by men, right? So that's kind of one way that I distinguish it. One is more inherent to the universe and creation. It's an inherent experience or product of the universe and the creation. The other is sort of a creation from the mind and culture of man, right? And it can vary wildly. Um, yeah, it's a corporate endeavor is another way that I oftentimes look at it and phrase it.
Yeah, well, yeah, like I think the legal system kind of applies to those, which is all of us at some point in our lives for the most part. The legal system is for those who can't obey the law themselves and govern themselves accordingly. So there's this whole system of endless laws put in place to attempt to govern us externally, but obviously that's not going to be nearly as effective as a self-governing populace would be.
Well, that's one of the things that I had to confront at some point, that everything that we see as legal spiritually has a reason for being, precisely because of what you just laid out, right? If we are a self-governing being on a self-governing sort of land, or a part of what we call a self-governing nation, then we all intrinsically, inherently have to know the law. If we refuse to govern ourselves properly and we cause loss, injury, and harm and want to lie, cheat, and steal, well, then someone, something, somewhere uh, is going to codify that law and then try to enforce that upon us, right? So, yeah, that's one way you could look at it, right? If America as a country or a corporation was operating properly, then code, statute, policy, and code would all just be essentially codifications of the inherent laws of the universe or laws of man, you know? So statute 1.235A would read, don't steal from your fellow man. But again, this is why I believe the spirit of the law that's codified in the contract called the Constitution originally is worded, and I'm paraphrasing something along the lines of, when the attempt to govern involved in self-governance of and by and for the people is enforced through policy, and it is destructive of the ends, the it's destructive of the mechanism of proper government, well, then any statute, policy, and code is rendered illegitimate. And we also go over the idea of consent to the governed, right? I think there's a lot of key phrases and sort of ideals that are encoded in the Constitution or Bill of Rights, Declaration of Independence, these various codifications of certain spirit of inherent law of who and what we are, but reveal the mind and the heart of the creator, right? Not only the creator of the document, but the creator of life, right? Or man himself, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. The consent of the governed is huge. So it's like when people come to you and they're like, well, why isn't he in jail? Why isn't Paul Unslaved in jail?
Why is he free?
Why is he free? So like, why is he free if you're not listening to these policy, statutes, and codes? Like, what is it about you that enables you to like govern yourself through these systems, despite what they tell you to do?
Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? This is where, and it's always the case. You get to receive what you perceive, as we joke around certain areas, but everyone gets to make up their own mind about why that is. I can't conclusively tell you why that is because I don't know conclusively, right? I mean, coming into a lot of this, I was guy number one in a way, expecting, well, at some point, they're going to put it on me. And that may be still yet to come, right? Once over and over again, that hasn't happened. I started to feel like, okay, maybe I do have an understanding here. Maybe it does make sense, right? Because you get gaslit. Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. You're a sovereign citizen. You don't know the law or legalities the way these experts and authorities do. You're just pulling this out of your ass, right? For lack of a better term. But yeah, like anything else, man. I mean, if you go into this like anything, I want to believe, and I think this might be part of the idea. You go into anything with the right intentions for the right reasons, and you do your best. You're pretty decent at what you do, right? And you try to stay honorable and good faith and work in trust. Then you want to believe things will work out some way, somehow, right? So, being a person who at some point has had revealed to me what seems to be uh, again, this idea of law or program inherent in the universe, I have to presume that kind of, all things are working toward what they're meant to work toward, right? So I think that there's a fair amount of this idea of trust and faith and this revelation of God. I don't really like that term, but it's a kind of a word for a description of an experience. Um, yeah, that's behind it, right? I'm using a lot of words to try to wrap my mind around it, but I think that that's a big part of it, right? It's something that I think oftentimes with a lot of folks gets overlooked, right, when they say that. And I know you get that from certain folks who've said that on the broadcast. Why is he free and why aren't you in jail? Um, I think it doesn't even occur to them that the universe just may have a program or a plan or an energy, and it just may back you if you're in alignment. Right? Regardless of kind of who you are and what your past is. Again, maybe that's just my sort of hopeful or romanticized thinking, right? But then at some point, you got to look at the track record, you know. I think that's where I think that's where God shows itself, right? It may shine through us all at times, but the record speaks for itself, And I just don't believe in coincidences on that level. So I get arrested 6 times in 5 years, never signed nothing, never paid for nothing, never agreed to nothing, never spoke on anybody else to get out of trouble, quote unquote. just did what was true and what's right, stood on it, was unwavering, you know, and somehow, some way, here we are, right? Everything seems to work
Yeah.
out. So
Yeah, it's like God is like moves inside. It's that's still quiet voice, but it's like it's operating in silence in the background, but you can see it when you reflect back. It's like to me, in my experience, is like the level of like interactions I've had, encounters I've had with police. I've had many encounters, and used to be I would always get tickets, always get in trouble, and now over time, like as I've had the same experiences with police again, the energy is different. They don't treat me the same. And typically, you just treat them like a man rather than a police officer you're scared of. And it changes the whole dynamic, really puts things in position. They recognize that in my experience. Over time, it's like there does seem to be this principle that shows itself over that there is this program running in the background that somehow protects those who are seeking to do what's right when their heart is convicted for that, whether or not the people around them believe that's what is right. The whole legal system and with loosen the lawyers and the police officers and all this, but there's clearly something higher governing everything. From my
I
experience,
would also make the statement, and this then calls into question how important we really are as beings, which is something, having to face kind of my own death recently with health issues. I was forced to look at it again, and re-examine how important we really are as individuals versus how important the ideas that we hold and act upon, right? And again, it would seem that if there's a force behind the scenes that is backing for the right reasons, and there's a force behind the scenes that is also doling out, let's say, tests and challenges, from the darker side of things, right?
mm,
So, with that in mind, is there once again, if we talk about this idea of inherent law, also inherent justice, where if you do what's right, then the universe backs you to an extent within the boundaries of law. And if you do wrong, whether you get caught or not, right? If you cause loss, injury, and harm to others, then at some point you get what you give, right? And things take a turn. So, um, yeah, I think that there is something to that, right? And it just might be like most things, a this and that scenario. We are here to play the game at times and to act and do certain things. We're also here at times to step back and surrender. We're not called to do those same things because someone else is going to be called to step up and fill that position, right? Is what potentially I've kind of been shown indirectly, or I guess been intuiting.
you know, yeah, there's a yeah. I don't know how much you want to get into your health thing. I mean, you bring it up, but like, have you found success in like healing yourself and knowing your relationship to your body, or are you going to doctors and stuff?
Well, I would have to, because if we're walking an authentic journey here and we find ourselves today at a place called healing law, then it would only make sense that, physician heal thyself, right? I believe one of the beings in the scripture supposedly said something along that line. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, man, I was real bad at one point, and it was constant. And more recently, I found a bit of reprieve, a bit of refreshment. Yeah, I'm trusting in the common sense ability, right, and doing what seems to make sense. Living as supernaturally as possible, naturally as possible. Um, yeah, I've been trusting faith that I'm recovering and I'll recuperate.
Yeah. It takes a lot to do that, but to me, that's the right path is to embrace that on your own because your body speaks to you more than it speaks to anyone outside of you. Like they don't have the feelings that you have, they can't feel. So our bodies communicate with us about what's going on, and we can find, I believe, in all circumstances, if not almost, that we can find how to develop that relationship with our body so that it functions properly again. The organs play. Sometimes their notes get a little out of tune, and they need just a little bit extra water or something, a little exercise, sunlight. grounding. It's simple solutions typically is all that's needed for the most part. But
Yeah, and I think
everybody's
also too,
different.
well, something that I think is overlooked. I've overlooked it at times is taking your own pulse as far as your nervous system. Like, are you in a continuous heightened state? Especially the world that we quote unquote live in nowadays, right? We always use that phrase, the world we live in. The world we live in is, one of, if you let it be, we'll constantly be bombarded with um, certain fears and negative energies and um, attacks on your nervous system, essentially, right? Not only do we
Hmm.
experience that externally, in a sense, but we also replicate that internally at times, right? Holding on to these certain thoughts and ideas. And instead of even experiencing that and using that as an inspiration to motivate you to do more, you just get kind of caught in that loop of, the world stage, the politics, the war, the chemtrails, all the rest of it. I'm guy number one for all that, right?
Yeah.
And then you got to remember to still keep living, and to find peace and joy throughout the day, right? And still have love and care for yourself, and try to have love and care for the life that you're living, right? And that's definitely a challenging tightrope walk to be involved in, right? So to
Hmm.
speak. It's kind of like you're always potentially maybe shifting one way or the other. It's still something I kind of have up for debate with myself. How much of this life is purpose oriented, where we need to know the truth and speak the truth and be the truth and the facts, versus pleasure oriented, right? Kind of remembering that, hey, we don't come here to constantly be at war with ourselves and each other, and rolling these boulders up hills and fighting these battles. We got to remember
Hmm.
to take a step back and live life, enjoy life, and at least rest, you know, have a rest at times.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the world hijacks our nervous system to get us going all the time and engaged with all the anger and hatred and fear. The reasons that we need the government to step in and protect us. You know, a little side note because this podcast is sponsored by my fulvic acid company, American Grit Fulvic. Paul, have you ever tried Shilajit?
Yeah, I have.
What do you think about that? Does it have an impact on you?
I if it I mean I got to a point where I started experimenting with a lot of things, plants, herbs, roots, herbs and spices. So I can't say conclusively one way or the other what's doing what. It's kind of a
Yeah.
useless experiment, right? Because if you're taking all these things and even if you find improvements, you don't really know, you can't really pinpoint or isolate uh where it's coming from. But I mean, listen, uh they say the shilajit is rotting plants and organic matter, and over time it's becomes mineral rich, as I understand it. And those minerals go through certain processes over a long period of time, and they say it's beneficial to certain aspects of the body's processes. I mean, makes just as much, if not more, sense as 14 shots for safety. You get where I'm going here.
Right.
You know. Uh, so yeah, I mean, ultimately, who knows, right? There's going to be somebody out there. If anyone winds up watching this or listening to this, uh, somebody's going to be out there saying, "I know all about Shilajit." You might be that guy,
Oh, I
Douglas.
know. I know all about.
I
Let me
know
tell you
you
about
are.
fulvic
Yeah,
acid
I
for a
had a
second, Paul.
feeling, right?
Hold on. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's basically ancient compost. Yeah, and American Grit's the strongest naturally occurring fulvic acid known, based on the studies that we've conducted. But yeah, essentially it acts like a tiny little bus. I've seen it, and it gets all these tiny micronutrients, and it's so small it can like get nutrients into our cells and help with hydration and help pull metals and toxins out of the body. Pretty fascinating stuff. But that was longer than I wanted to go on about that. But I have to, it's my
well, I'm
OperationAmericanGrit.com. Go check
glad you
it out.
brought it up, Douglas, because this show is also
Oh yeah.
sponsored by. We have two Shilajit companies here. There's Healing Law, and then we have a Israeli supplier and our shilajit from the Israeli supplier is made from the actual bones of Palestinians. That's how we know that it's mineral rich. So feel free to go to healinglaw.com. Order now. I'm totally going to get you syndicated. Producer's giving you the sign, huh? The Israeli shilajit didn't go over well. All right, well, we'll wrap it up, Douglas. I appreciate you. Yeah. I appreciate you having me here. It was a great back and forth colloquy, as they say at court. And yeah, I look forward to being back at some point. We can
Yeah, man,
go
that'd be great.
deeper.
And I'll have my stuff together better. Today, I'm not prepared. I'm flying to interviews, but yeah, man, I appreciate you having taken the time, and I always appreciate talking to you. Paul Unslaved is your channel at. Oh, it's at Proper Instruction Motivates People.
Right. The acronym is Pimp Unslaved because I was trying to be edgy and controversial. It's part of my brand. They tell me.
Is there
yeah,
anywhere
at
else people can reach
Pimp
you if
Unslaved.
they want to reach out to you? Or anything
I
else
don't
you
want to be
plug?
reached. I'll reach out to you.
Okay.
Whoever you are,
All
wherever
right.
you are out there, just trust in God that if it's meant to be, I will find you. Facebook,
Oh, man.
Slave Book, Insta Slave. You know, I'm on all the usual platforms as Paul Unslaved. So if folks are that hung up on getting a hold of me, right? If they really have something they want to say to me, I'm sure that they can find a way. I'm on TikTok too. I do like TikTok dances. Douglas, we got to
Oh,
do that
really?
one day. TikTok dance. No, I don't actually do TikTok dance.
I'll definitely check that out.
I am on there with similar content, legal, lawful stuff, etc.
I've never seen it. I'll have to find out. What is that?
What?
What's the app?
TikTok?
Mm-hmm.
TikTok. Yeah, it's you don't know TikTok? Where have you been?
What's your at on TikTok, Paul?
Oh, I thought you said what's the app? I don't know it exactly. It's Paul Unslaved. I'm Paul Unslaved on everything.
Okay. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for your time. This is the Healing Law Podcast. World famous Judge Unslavius, aka Paul Unslaved, Paul Laporta. Thank you so much for taking your time to be here today. And y'all be well.
Thank you, Douglas. See you later.
Thank you.